Welcome back, everybody, to the Beer Sherpa. We are starting a new series, which is going to be called Between Two Barrels. This is going to end up being kind of like an interview series where, I get to ask some questions to people that work here at the brewery. And today we are with Dillon.
Hello.
Dillon is one of our brewers back here in, what do we call this place back here?
This is the brew house?
Oh, the brew house.
The brew house.
Yes. The, what kind of forest?
Oh, the fermentable forest.
Oh, the
is back that
fermentable
way.
forest
Yes.
is back
This
that
is
way.
the brew house.
Yes.
That's fermentable forest. Yeah.
Yes.
And then packaging land, which no one likes to be there.
Well, no. Who wants to be?
No. It's bad.
So, where are you from, Dillon? I don't think a lot of people around here know.
Not from around here. I'm from New York. I grew up on Long Island. I moved here about 2 years ago, so I'm still new to the region, but I love it here. It's nice.
Well, what brought you here?
My ex-wife. We moved here a couple years ago because New York just got way too expensive, and we just thought coming here would be a good thing to be able to hopefully get a house or afford a place on our own and this and that, because in New York it was basically live with your parents, live with a bunch of roommates, you couldn't afford anything.
Completely understandable. I mean, I've never been to New York myself. I can only imagine my girlfriend lived out there when she was in dance and ballet and everything.
Yeah.
But she said it was crazy. She hated living in the city.
I mean, it's awesome, and I still love it. It's great, but it's just it's crazy. It's crazy.
So you like it here a lot better, a little bit slower.
A little slower, but it's still kind of. I mean, since everyone's coming in from the Chicago area to this area, it's really exploded in the last 2 years since I've been here. So it kind of feels a little bit more at home, but it is a little slower pace, which I like.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And how old are you?
I am 31.
31 years old. And when did you first start getting into craft beer?
So I have two older brothers, so they were getting into craft beer when I was not old enough to consume it. Maybe I tried a little bit of theirs and was maybe I tried some of their stuff, and I was like, wow, what is this? Oh my gosh. And I do remember way back in the day, my grandparents were Scottish and my grandfather loved English beers, but there wasn't, back then there wasn't that many English beers out there, but he always had Sierra Nevada Porter in his fridge.
Love a good
and
porter.
As a kid, I just remember seeing that label, being like, oh, that's cool. It's not like the normal beer.
Right.
And because growing up, all you know is all the big macro stuff. You don't know that there's really any other options. And it's like, oh, there's a cool, weird label. It's got like a forest-looking thing on it.
It's crazy because, like, for me growing up, like, it was always my dad.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was, a beer drinker, but he wasn't a craft beer drinker. And
microbrews back then.
His thing was, hey, Dan, are you busy?
Yeah.
And that was the code word for, hey, I want a beer.
Yeah.
And I just always remember going to the fridge and, when I was little, it was always Stroh's.
Yeah, Stroh's.
Ah, yes.
My parents were Coors Light drinkers, still are. Yeah. But I mean, hey.
Okay,
water.
so you had some early experience with some craft beer. Well, when did you get into brewing in general?
So again, was young. My brothers were getting all this crazy cool craft beer, and especially in the Northeast, it was really popping off. This was probably like 2012, 2011, 2012, 2013, in that range when like they were getting into craft beer, and I mean that boom in New York was like just starting to hit. Like some of the breweries that people know of as these huge craft institutions were, I mean, just starting out and just figuring out what worked, because none of them really had the lane that they were going to be in. They were figuring it out, and it was really cool. They'd bring growlers home and stuff and this and that, and so I was 19 and I was at a beer distributor with my brother, and I saw a homebrew kit there. It was like a 1 gallon homebrew kit, and I was like, oh well, I could buy this. It's not
play
beer.
Around.
It's like it's so it was a 1 gallon kit, made it on my stovetop. So actually I got the picture on my Facebook memories. Well, it was like 11 years ago.
Wow.
Like a couple days ago was like my first homebrew bottling day or whatever.
So what kind of beer was it that you brewed first?
It was an IPA. It was from Brooklyn Brew Shop, is the name of the company. I think they're still around.
And how was it?
I thought it was all right. I mean, it was all grain. I followed the recipe. I love cooking and stuff like that, so it was, following the recipe. And I mean, it wasn't infected by any means. I don't know if it fully fermented how it should have, because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But it definitely had drinking the 6 beers I got out of it, it definitely had some alcohol to it. And then I just caught the bug. Kept doing it, and kept buying those 1 gallon kits online because they had all the grain pre-milled and all that stuff. And then a friend of mine told me about it. He was like, "Oh, the hardware store that I go to has a homebrew shop in the back." And I was like, "Get out of here!" And it was right near my house. It was like a 5-minute drive. Nice. And so I'd go there and I would just start picking out grains and playing around, and then coming up with my own recipes, and had a Google spreadsheet and everything and stuff. And nerd alert. And it was when I was in college at the time, but I'd be in class and all I'd be thinking about is like beer recipes or like homebrew equipment or like what else I could get next. And I worked in a restaurant, so I knew people who could get like these big stock pots and this and that. So I was like, why am I in business school? This is dumb.
So are you just like Frankenstein and everything?
Yeah, or trying to at least,
Right.
I had plans to do stuff, but then I ended up getting a job at a brewery and then never made it.
So what brewery did you get a job at?
So as I turned 21, started actually going to the breweries. We'd go to this one brewery, Great South Bay Brewery on Long Island, and I would just hang out there, get a growler, get a flight, maybe a 6-pack or something like that, and started drinking with my buddies one day on a weekend. He was like, "Oh, dude, did you hear that they're hiring?" And I was like, "Get the fuck out of here!" Like, no way. And
because dream come true.
Because again, I was in school for like business, and I was like, I don't care about corporate finance. Like this, it's just not.
It's just not for you.
It's just not for me. And then I was gonna go to culinary school. I did everything short of paying for culinary school. I was going to in the fall, but this was in like June or something like that, like beginning of the summer. And they were hiring for the summer, and I was like, well, let me apply. If I get the job, I'll try it out. I can work at a brewery. If not, I'll go to culinary school. Well, that's fine. And I got hired as just packaging. I was like taping up the boxes for the bottling line, and cleaning up and doing washing kegs and stuff like that. The normal grunt work that most people, when they start at a brewery, that's the way it goes. You know. And I loved it from day one. It was great. I mean, the guys who worked there were fucking awesome. And that was almost 10 years ago.
So when you think about working at that brewery, how long was it before you started brewing professionally from that point?
Like on my own recipe and everything that actually got made? Or?
Well, yeah.
Actually on the brew house making stuff, maybe like a year or so later.
Oh, so it was pretty quick.
Pretty quick. It was bigger than here as far as like the system size, but when I started there, it was probably about the same capacity of beer being made. And it was, I think the first year I worked there, it was like 1,200 barrels, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it really is. 1,200 barrels is a lot of beer to make in a year for a kind of startup, And we had a bottling line at the time. It was a little small one, and like 6 fermenters, keg washer, a couple bright tanks. So it was small, but there wasn't that many people who worked there. It was like me and like 4 other guys.
It's crazy to think when Square opened how small we were back here.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Like when you go back into like Facebook pictures.
Yeah. A couple of fermenters aren't here.
It was just like a couple of fermenters, and that was it.
No racks of cans.
No, we had no racks of cans. We had no distributing line.
Yep.
It was very much a lot of open space.
Oh yeah. Here. That's the warehouse at Great South Bay when I started there. 3/4 of it was empty, and it was just a huge open warehouse, and it was completely empty. We used to end up renting out space to just random companies to store stuff there for a while because we weren't using it. And but yeah, no, it was probably about a year or so after I started there. I was like up on the brew house, like making beer. Within that time, learning sell their stuff. We had a DE filter, so we were like learning how to do all that, and
Right.
learning the cold side and the packaging side first was very helpful because that's the most important part. If you're not sanitary or your oxygen levels are bad, beer's gonna be crap. You can have
Yep.
the best brewers in the world making the best beer. If you're not doing the right stuff in the cellar and package, you just ruined it for everybody.
Yep.
So it was good to see that end go from, you know, basically the bottom up, climb the ladder up.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It had to have been an awesome experience. So, when you are brewing, when you think about brewing in general, what is the hardest part about being a brewer?
Ooh, the hardest part. I guess just your attention to detail. I don't know if that's necessarily the hardest part, but it's like, because the recipe, I mean, it matters, but it doesn't really matter. The process of which, like the attention to detail, whether, you know, taking pH samples at the right time or the right temperature corrections, all that kind of stuff, even in the cellar, gravity checks and all that stuff. I mean, that's the nitty gritty of it.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's probably the hardest part because, I mean, again, you can take any recipe. If you don't take care of all those little things,
It's about the quality
yes.
of the ingredients. It's about following procedure, and cleanliness, and sanitation.
Yep. Oh yeah, finding all those. It's the little nuances that make a great beer great.
So
That's the hardest.
If that is the hardest, what is your favorite part of making beer? Like when you think about it from start to finish, what is your favorite part? Like, is it the beginning? Is it the smell of something? Is it simply tasting things in the bright tank? Is it the final product once it hits the tap?
There's a few different moments of it. So like on the hot side and the brew house side, like getting that first whiff of a mash in, of like getting some, especially if you're using like some specialist grains you don't use that often or this or that. It's just like getting that like, this is what I was picturing in my mind when I was writing down this recipe that I wanted to do.
And I completely get that. You know, I've only helped back here once with Ride or Die.
Yeah.
And I completely get that.
Yeah.
Because once we started adding things, it was just
Oh yeah.
it smelled so good. And it was like nothing I had ever experienced back here before.
Yeah.
And it was so cool.
Right. No, and that, like I said, so within the steps of it, that as far as brew house, that's the best. And it's usually early in the morning or something like that. You get that, you know, come in, get everything going. As soon as you start smelling that grain, you're like, this is
gonna be a good day.
Yeah. Because then the rest of it, you know, you're kind of just turning valves and stuff like that. It's not, you know, worrying about your collection levels, but again, it's that magic is already in the air.
Right.
And then cold side, I would say, I mean, definitely when the you know, you start hearing the bubbles and the fermentation's going and everything, that's always nice. But that, I think that
When it becomes all farty back.
yeah, but I think that initial smell after it's done fermenting, but it's not quite fully matured yet, where you're kind of getting that like, oh, this is gonna be what I thought it was gonna
Right.
be. And then like packaging, just being able to, you know, once it's done, getting good DO numbers on the package line, then being able to, you know, crack looking open and be like, that's it. That's what we wanted.
I don't think a lot of people have ever experienced beer out of a bright tank.
Not a lot of people know.
And
No.
it is one of my favorite parts.
Yeah.
Because it's like that close to being ready to be out in the brew house.
Oh yeah, I mean it's
And it is simply just one of my favorite parts because it gives you just that preview of what is just about to happen.
right. Yeah. And
Even though it is going to change a little bit,
Right, I was
depending
about to
on
say
the
that,
style,
yes.
depending on the beer, like you're getting it in its raw form.
yeah.
And I absolutely love that. It's my favorite part, even though I'm
Yeah.
not a brewer.
But still, you get to you know, suckle on that teat a little bit, and it's fantastic. But then there are certain beers though that they do kind of, you know, taste better in like the couple days after package, whether
Yeah.
it's in a keg or a can. just to, or if we can let it sit in the bright tank for like a week or so. Like, I think we were saying, like, yeah, let those flavors marinate in there, you know, like,
Right.
Oh, and
Let it do its thing.
It really does.
The magic work.
I mean, it'll hit a plateau, and then hopefully it won't fall off for a while. But yeah, getting those steps, if you can, in a bright or in the package, it's a beautiful thing.
Awesome. Love that. So I know this answer is going to definitely vary, but when you think about your average beer, how long does an average beer take? So if you're thinking about like 65 South,
Yeah.
how long would that beer take to make that beer?
That beer, I think it's about like 8-ish weeks or more sometimes. I think, again, if we were like under the gun, we could probably like 8-ish, 8.5 weeks, because the lagering time just takes the longest.
Right.
But if it was something like Victory Ale, if we really were under the gun and needed to, we could get that beer done in 11 days.
And that's what I think a lot of people don't get, is that beers take different lengths of time to make depending on the style.
Yeah.
And I would love to like talk forever about this particular topic, because I mean, IPAs and blondes and, you know, Belgians, they all have different amount of times that they take. So I mean, it's such an interesting thing to me, because it's literally like baking a cake.
Yeah, 100%.
It absolutely is. And it's just so interesting when you think about brewing and how similar it is to cooking, but also there's so much chemistry.
Yeah, there is. It's kind of, it is like cooking, but it's a little bit more like baking, because you kind of have to follow a recipe. And sure, if you don't follow it completely, the cake will still be made. Right. It won't be as spongy, or it'll be a little more, it's the same thing kind of with brewing, where there's a lot of these little marks that you need to hit as far as pHs and temperatures and stuff to get I don't even know if it's proper end result, because you can get there without doing some of those things. It's just going to be a little different.
Right.
But it is kind of like cooking too, where with hop additions and stuff like that, you can kind of sprinkle it in here and there. Sure, you want to measure it, but like, that's not going to mess up the entire process.
Right.
You know, like certain temperatures and pHs on it.
So I've known you for a couple of years now, since you've worked here. What is your favorite beer to drink?
To drink.
Like, when you look at our menu, what is your favorite beer to drink on our menu?
It's been Victory since it's gone on.
I had a feeling that's just why I took the Heart of Darkness.
I do love the Heart of Darkness, though. That's been another one of my go-tos recently. But the Victory Ale, it's that perfect first beer, or like after a long day. It's crisp, it's clean, it's very unoffensive, like I always say.
It's extraordinarily just approachable.
Average beer, but it tastes great. It's like, it's dry, but it's not like super, super dry.
It's still got flavor.
It's got the flavor. The hops are using it. Give it like that little bit of like that fruity orange peel kind of like subtle notes to it. And I mean, it's just a great beer. It's a great everyday beer. So don't get sick of it.
If Victory is your favorite beer to drink, what is your favorite beer back here to make?
Most of them are very similar, because it's just, the grains going in, all that stuff. I kind of like when we get to play around with some of these IPAs we've done in the past, like Veranda Weather.
Veranda was cool. I love Veranda.
And I like that Rock and Roll, the one we did with Feddersen, and because we're using new hop products on this. Right. And like, we know how the product's going to perform, but with the different hop styles, like the flavors we're getting on it are just so wild. Like, hops that shouldn't be giving fruity notes taste like Fruity Pebbles, and it's like, what is going on here? This is amazing. Like, those beers I'd say, need the most jazz to be like, just that new product, and seeing how it's actually gonna be at the end of the road.
So you've clearly been brewing for let's say over a decade.
Just about, yeah. It has, yeah.
When you think about all of that time, what is the weirdest or the most unique beer you had ever brewed?
I've brewed probably too many because Great South Bay, as we started getting bigger and adding more fermenters and all that stuff, and we had a pretty large system. We had a 30-barrel system, so we had like huge 60-barrel tanks and 120s, and we became kind of a contract facility for a lot of local guys, and then it kept branching out to we were brewing beers for other international brands that instead of importing their beers, they just get a contract made by us.
Right.
And some of the craziest beers, like literally throwing French fries and hamburger buns in the mash to, donuts to crazy different sours and cultures and fruits and all that stuff. There was we did a stout with red miso paste.
Jesus.
Just some wild stuff. But I think the craziest one, it was an accident.
That is when.
Yeah.
I love when that happens.
But it wasn't it was a pretty bad one.
Ooh.
So, but it was good and bad because it kind of became a gag joke between us, almost literally a gag joke.
Oh, boy.
But so we were making this beer for an international brewery, and they were sending us all their recipes and stuff like that. And I guess the conversions to like liters or hectoliters and this and that, some of that got messed up in the like the brew went fine, and then they put unpeeled almonds into the beer because they were doing like an almond lemon tart beer, and then they got us an entire 55-gallon drum of lemon concentrate.
Oh, good God.
And that's where the mess up was with the lead. I don't know who messed it up, but we went back a couple times and I'm like, "You're sure this whole barrel is going in the beer?" They said that's what the recipe says, and it was basically battery acid. It was like a warhead on steroids. It was the most, and we kept being like, "Do you guys want this to be packaged?" They're like, "Just package it, yeah." And then we
dear
packaged
Lord.
it, sent it out to them. And they're like, "This doesn't taste like it should." And we're like, "We've been trying to, But that was the crazy, because it shouldn't have happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it probably would have eaten through the cans. It was so acidic.
Yikes.
But we had a ton of it packaged, and most of it just hit the trash. But we saved a bunch of them because they were just in the bright cans. And whenever we had a new run of like some sort of IPA or something like that, we'd throw one on the canning line, mark it, and be like, "Yo, did you try the new IPA?" And someone would crack it open, and what the hell?
A fun little prank to play.
Yeah. But that's definitely the craziest one because it shouldn't have happened.
Mm-hmm.
It was just I don't even know if it's a happy accident. And then we rebrewed the beer and used the proper amount, which was 5 gallons, not 55 gallons. And it was pretty
I
good
think
beer.
that would make a big difference.
Yes, big difference. And it was concentrate too, so it was
real potent.
Yeah.
All right, Dillon. Very, very last question for you. You've been here a couple of years, and I know that you wouldn't have stuck around unless you really enjoyed working here. So, in your opinion, what do you think sets Square Brewing apart from other breweries in the area?
To other breweries in the area, I mean, not super familiar with a lot of them. I've met a lot of people from working here and gone to a bunch of them. I mean, I think everyone around here, comparatively to like New York, does a really good job of doing a broad spectrum of beers. Where there's a lot of breweries in New York where it's like you went there and there was 12 hazy IPAs on the menu, maybe a stout, and then maybe a couple pastry stouts. And then there were some that were doing all Belgian stuff, or some that were doing not a lot that were actually running the gambit.
Mm-hmm. And playing and experimenting with all kinds of different styles,
yes.
Making it more approachable to everybody.
Bastardizing traditional styles and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, maybe that's the answer, is that we don't mind bastardizing traditional styles.
No, because we do that quite a bit here.
Yeah, we do it quite a bit, and because it's like, well, yeah,
We're
I
off
mean,
Square.
right, exactly. It's
We're a
kind of
little bit off.
It's kind of in the name, but also we have our traditional beers that we've had.
We
have
absolutely
65, we have Easy Day, we have kind of Victory Now, and like it's kind of just traditional style beers. And then the rest of them, mess around with, you know. And I think that's the best part, and
I mean, when I
what
think
sets
of,
us apart, I think.
when I think about my 7 years here, or almost 7 years, June will be 7. When I think about all of that time, I don't think there has ever been a single beer on the menu that we repeatedly make that we make the same way.
Yeah,
Like I always feel like there's always that tweaking.
Oh, we are.
Because I feel like we're always chasing for a better batch.
Yes.
Which,
100%.
Which I absolutely love.
Yeah.
Like we're learning from our mistakes.
Yeah.
When we think about a long day, what our vision of a long day is, it's getting there. It's almost there. Like we're striving for that perfect batch.
I feel like that's what any good brewery should do. I mean, yeah, there are those recipes we don't really touch much, but we'll change a few little things, like a little of those nuanced things as far as like little temperatures and this and that. But I think if you're not doing that, you're just going to get stuck in the mud. And I mean, you look at most of these, even the bigger breweries, the big national breweries, you know, their beer today from what it was 10 years ago is definitely different from most of them.
Right.
Except for these big, huge macro guys that are, you know, Budweiser, Coors. But even then, those beers do end up, over decades times, changing a little bit. Because they're still fighting the consumer to keep buying it. And consumers' palates change. You get new generations of drinkers that come in that want certain things. And just being able to nuancely play to both sides.
And I feel like that's the hard part of this industry is that consumers' tastes change.
Oh, yeah.
And you're going to have popular styles. And I mean, I love lagers, and I'm glad that lagers are like more of a thing.
Yeah. Well,
and it's kind of the same thing with Pilsners. Pilsners are more of a thing now. And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's not to say that I don't love a good stout. You guys know that I love a good stout. Or a good solid IPA. But I mean, it's good to like see a lot of these styles just kind of come in and out and fade in and out. And the more, you know, the brewers play, the more we can play around with not just different styles, but maybe even create new styles. Yeah.
Oh, and that's just finding that cutting edge or the riding the the crest of the wave. Just like, hey, what? Not being like, oh my God, these were popular 2 months ago. Let's Let's see if we'll maybe in 3 months make it when the craze is done. Try and find stuff, or just come up with stuff on your own and maybe make a impression on other people and get other people excited to like, wait, you guys did what to a what?
Right.
Oh wait, I want to try that, and then get the wheels turning. But you're not going to hit a home run or even a base hit every single time.
Right.
But that's the most fun part about experimenting.
Well, Dillon,
happy accidents.
Thank you for joining me this afternoon. Appreciate it.
Cheers.
And thank you guys out there. Like, subscribe. Come on in and have a beer with us.
Yeah.
We'll be around. And until next time,
Can't wait to see you.